Every city contains animals. In modern cities, most animals are regulated. They are licensed, restricted, confined, or removed. There are rules about where animals can go and how many are allowed. These systems are so familiar that they often go unnoticed. For most of history, they did not exist. Early cities lived with animals as a constant presence. Animals moved through streets. They lived near homes. They worked, ate, reproduced, and died inside city limits. This was not considered unusual. It was normal. In this video, we'll look at life without animal regulation in early cities, and how urban life functioned without modern systems of control, licensing, or removal. Animals were not separate from city life. They were part of it. Cities depended on animals for labor, transport, food, and materials. Without animals, cities could not function. Horses pulled carts. Donkeys carried loads. Oxen hauled heavy goods. Cows produced milk. Chickens produced eggs. Pigs consumed waste. Animals were tools, resources, and property. They were also unpredictable. Modern cities are usually separated from agriculture. Early cities were not. Farms, gardens, and livestock existed inside and immediately outside city walls. Animals moved freely between these spaces. A pig might be raised inside a courtyard. A goat might graze along a roadside. Chickens might roam between homes. This blurred boundary made regulation difficult and unnecessary. Animals were expected to be present. Animals were privately owned. There were few centralized records, no licensing systems, no standardized limits. Ownership was informal but understood. People recognized which animals belonged to whom. Disputes were handled locally. If an animal caused damage, responsibility was personal, not administrative. Streets were shared spaces. They were not reserved for people alone. Animals rested there, moved through them, stopped without warning. Livestock were driven through streets to markets. Draft animals waited while carts were loaded. Unattended animals wandered short distances. This slowed movement. It also normalized negotiation. Pigs were especially common. They required little care. They consumed scraps and waste. They converted refuse into meat. In many cities, pigs were intentionally allowed to roam. They functioned as a form of waste management. This came with risks. Pigs were aggressive. They caused injuries. They damaged property. Despite this, they remained common. The benefit outweighed the inconvenience. Cows were kept within city limits in many places. Milk spoiled quickly. Keeping cows nearby ensured fresh supply. This required space. Cows were kept in courtyards, sheds, or small yards. Manure accumulated. Odors were common. Cities tolerated this because alternatives were limited. Chickens, ducks, and geese were widespread. They required little space. They fed themselves easily. They wandered freely. Noise was accepted. Mess was expected. These animals blurred the line between household and street. Working animals followed routines. They traveled the same routes, stopped at familiar places, responded to known handlers. This predictability reduced chaos. Animals learned the city as much as people did. There were no animal control departments, no standardized removal, no shelters, no enforcement officers. Problem animals were handled individually. An aggressive animal might be restrained. An injured animal might be killed. A lost animal might be claimed or ignored. Solutions were local and immediate. Not all animals had clear owners. Some were abandoned. Some were born in the street. Some escaped and were never reclaimed. Cities tolerated a certain number of stray animals. Dogs were especially common. They scavenged. They followed people. They guarded spaces informally. This created noise and occasional danger. It was accepted. Dogs served many roles. They guarded homes, protected goods, alerted residents to strangers. They were not pets in the modern sense. They were working animals. Aggressive dogs were dealt with when necessary. There was no systematic approach. Animals caused problems. They damaged property, blocked streets, injured people. Complaints existed. Records mention disputes over trampling, noise, and waste. Resolution depended on witnesses and reputation. There was no universal rulebook. Some cities issued specific rules. Pigs might be banned from certain streets. Animals might be restricted near markets or wells. These rules were narrow and reactive. They addressed problems after they occurred. Enforcement was inconsistent. Markets required short-term control. Animals were gathered, penned, or tied. Movement was supervised. Once the market ended, control relaxed. The system expanded and contracted as needed. Cultural attitudes mattered. Some animals were valued. Others were despised. Religious customs influenced treatment. This shaped tolerance levels. People noticed patterns. Certain animals were associated with illness. There was no germ theory. Responses were practical. Animals might be removed temporarily. Areas might be avoided. Systematic control was rare. Animals interacted directly with waste systems. They consumed scraps, moved through refuse. This reduced waste volume. It also spread contamination. Cities accepted this trade-off. Animal presence changed with seasons. Winter reduced movement. Summer increased roaming. Breeding cycles increased numbers temporarily. Cities adapted without planning. Wealth mattered. Elite households kept animals more securely. Poorer households relied on roaming. Rules were applied unevenly. This was understood and accepted. Formal regulation requires infrastructure, records, officers, enforcement. Early cities lacked these systems. They relied on familiarity and routine instead. As cities grew, animal populations increased. Space became limited. Conflicts increased. Informal systems strained. Complaints became more frequent. Gradually, change began. Animals were restricted from certain areas. Licensing appeared in limited form. Dedicated removal emerged slowly. These changes were uneven and contested. Modern animal regulation developed alongside sanitation systems, traffic control, public health administration. Animals were gradually pushed out of cities. Urban life changed. Cities became cleaner and quieter. They also lost flexibility. Animals disappeared from daily urban life. This shift was gradual, not sudden. Before modern animal regulation, cities lived with animals. They shared space, negotiated conflict, adapted through habit. Order came from familiarity, not enforcement. Cities functioned because people adjusted continuously. Modern regulation replaced these routines. But for centuries, this was how urban life worked. Through proximity, tolerance, and constant accommodation.